I was born 4 months premature, 2 pounds 15 ounces, basically fit in the size of a man's hand. There was a battle that I had to face in terms of even survival. And what that's left for me is what is known as cerebral palsy. For me, it's actually just a mild condition, and it affects my gait in terms of my balance and as well as the way that I walk. I would say that if you look around you, for the most part, people are self-absorbed. I think that it's not really a fault of our own, it's just everyone gets locked into what's important for them. And so it's very easy to get so locked into your routines, so locked into your goal setting and whatever is so important to you that you forget about the world around you. And I think that the challenge is to recognize that in every day and every moment, there's an opportunity to be part of change for the better, right? So every person has a voice, every person has a space where they operate, that they've got influence. I can already relate to the idea of a miracle because I know that I'm definitely here for a purpose, I'm here for a reason, and I've been able to see that in other people, that I kind of recognize that, you know what, there's always a journey whenever you meet somebody. So what you see on the surface is never the truth about someone. There's always a story, there's a journey, and there's a miracle there if we'll just look for it. And so I believe that everyone's a miracle. It starts with my faith in God. It's rooted in my amazing relationship with family and friends. And I think that when you've been blessed with such great relationships upward and as well as across, so like the people that you relate to every day, whether it's coworkers, family, friends, you recognize that everyone deserves that. And so for me, it's to take the opportunity to introduce people to love and to good vibes and to opportunities and to the better sides of themselves that they may have never recognized, and being that voice of like, you know what, dude, you got that sauce about you that no one has been ever recognized, but I'm pointing it out to you. I feel like the impact of that is felt almost instantaneously. I draw from the pain of my past, from the experiences of my friends and family, the things that I've personally been through. I also look to scripture and to the things that have really informed my faith and that have been my strength, my foundation. And I'm really passionate about pulling up the best in people. I feel that everyone is a miracle. Everyone has giftings, talents, abilities, and skills that have yet to be mined out. And I feel like I've been given the ability to awaken you to the best parts of yourself. And so whether I do it with a smile or through a written word or through a joke, whatever it is, the main and end goal is to open up your eyes to the best that you have. And so by choosing to connect with me, you basically get to grow with me, and there's always going to be transparency, there's always going to be truth, and there's always going to be a desire to help you be the best person that you can be.
Hey everybody, just want to welcome you to It's Your Time with your boy Sammy. A pleasure as always. I'm really excited about today's episode. We're actually sitting down with one of my really good friends, a person that is making history for my hometown of Hamilton, Ontario, and he has done so much. He's got a great story, and every time you meet a great person, you know that there's definitely a process they've gone through, and so I really wanted to have you hear his story. Than Campbell is with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure being here. It was awesome to be.
You don't want to
now that the tables kind of have
That's
been
right.
reversed. You were on my show earlier, so this is pretty cool to be on yours. And congratulations,
Thank
by
you
the
so
way.
much.
What a successful story,
Yes.
and I'm excited to really be here today. So yeah, thank you for the invitation.
So I have read Orphan 32. which is your autobiography.
It is,
and
yeah.
it really moved me, really challenged me, and kind of pulled me out of the place of even having any excuses about my own personal journey.
Wow.
And I really felt that the viewers of It's Your Time had to hear a bit about where you've come from.
Thank you.
And so right now I know that you are living here in the city of Hamilton,
yes.
that you're kind of active all over the province, doing things on the east side, the west side. Every time I talk to you, you're somewhere else doing something, right?
Sometimes twice in a day I'm somewhere else.
That's it. And so I just thought, why not take off the blinders and give people a little bit of an insight into your journey. So why don't you tell us where the idea for Orphan 32?
Sure, absolutely. Well, God has blessed me in mighty ways, right? Especially with the family that I was brought into, the Campbell family. A lot of people, you know, when they see my name in print or hear my name, Than Campbell, how do those two names, fit together? And so I get to share this God story with them. And so I was born in the country of Vietnam in 1973. And so during that time was the Vietnam conflict, the Vietnam War, probably one of the longest wars. It actually spanned over 3 decades long.
And it's so hard to even get a sense of understanding what that looks like. 3 decades of war, right?
And really, it could have been a very, if you want to call it a quick war, but it just escalated beyond the point that it needed to. But it did, and by 1973, when I came onto the scene, it was almost to its height. It lasted a couple more years. 1975, April 30th, 1975 was the end of the war. But by that time, when I was born, the communist regime had basically taken over the whole country. They were about to take over Saigon, which was the capital at the time, and then the war would be done. What was also happening, though, is that these children were being basically abandoned in very different ways. Some left on church steps, some right to the orphanages, some in the middle of the street. And so these Catholic nuns were taking care of these children and scooping them up and taking care of them. But what was happening by 1975 is that too many children.
Now, was this widespread all throughout the country?
It was more towards the south, more towards the capital city, because they kept on bringing them from outlying areas, and then bringing them to the city, because that's where the airport was. And they started evacuating these children for something called Operation Baby Lift. And what happened is, in 1973, beginning of April, a plane load of children who started Operation Baby Lift, 300 children were taken out of a Galaxy C5 plane out of Tanzania Airport, and just to a lot of circumstances, the plane crashed. And there was only about 145 survivors out of the 300. Miracle there were any, but that fuselage of the plane is still in the field today as a memorial. And so it was a hairy time, it was a crazy time, but they knew they still had to get these children out. So they started sending these kids out to Australia, United States.
Just kind of spread them out all over.
Exactly. And Canada was watching what was going on, and they heard of a phenomenon where a birth family would trace where their child went to, even though they had abandoned them earlier, would find out where they went, and they went to the doorstep of this newly adopted family and claim their child back. And so it was causing a lot of issues. And so Canada says, you have to prove that these children are true orphans. They're not going to have families coming to look for them. So Canada, they agreed with that. So Canada put their team of doctors and nurses together, and they flew over via Hong Kong, right? Left a medical team there, and then they got into Saigon. Scooped up the babies, put them onto the plane, and all they had were cardboard boxes. Right? And banana boxes. And that's what they would put. That's how they carted these babies on the floor of the plane. And I joke when I'm in schools, right, that they duct taped them to the floor of the plane. That's true. They strapped them to the floor of the plane, but they didn't do baby boxes, right? And so that's how they flew us out, because they just had to get us out of the country. Made it safely, but we were shot at. They take the anti-aircraft bullets, actually hit the plane as we were taking off, but we made it safely into Hong Kong. Medical team took care of us there, and then the rest of us flew to Toronto by way of a commercial airline. So imagine, we're in your chair, you got your chair to the upright and locked position, you got everything ready, you want your peanuts, and people start doling kids out like peanuts. and passengers having to hold these children and comfort them,
restless,
clean them, all of that, all the way from Hong Kong to Toronto.
And that is not a short flight. That's
not at all, right?
Like a 2-hour flight.
So, but we landed in Toronto. It's a memorial flight for everyone, obviously. And then we were bused down to downtown Toronto, and that's where we stayed in the first nights of being in Canada at one Surrey Place Centre.
Wow.
Now, what happened is most of the children were pre-adopted, and this family got their phone call on a Saturday night. We landed on the 13th, and on the 17th they got a phone call.
Okay.
And it was the Campbell family. And their 13-year-old daughter, Joan, was taking care of the rest of her siblings.
Okay.
It was the ministry. And they said, are you still interested in adopting one of these Vietnamese children? 13 years old. Yes, we are. And she answered on behalf of her parents who were out at this wedding.
So she was babysitting?
She was babysitting.
And she decided, hey, I want a brother or sister.
We'll adopt them, right? But she knew the heart of her parents. They probably had discussed this, and she was just passing on the message, right? And so then she calls the wedding where my father was attending, and he was the pastor. And he said, she said, Dad, you adopted someone tonight. And so they knew that the wedding was over. They had to come home. And then on Saturday, the next day, they all drove down to Toronto to meet their new baby. Now they're expecting a child.
I'm trying to just wrap my mind around the fact that these babies, over 50 babies, are in boxes.
Yeah, I know. It's quite the scene.
The box that you would use for some kind of groceries.
Oh yeah. And sometimes 2 babies to a box.
Have been strapped. Gone hours on end in planes,
hot.
They get into another country,
yes.
They don't know anybody, have no connection to anything.
Exactly.
And 4 days later.
Well, one of the 9-year-olds too was one looking out the window and heard the sound of the bullets hitting the plane. Can you imagine how traumatic that would be for a child at 9, 8 years old? Terrible,
and
right?
It's one of those things where do you even begin to understand what is going on?
No, they just couldn't wrap their head. You know what I mean? Now, fortunately, we sheltered, but like being 2 years old, 3 years old. I don't remember that aspect of it. So, but we were very tiny babies when we arrived. This is me when I was arriving in Toronto, and we were numbered. That's how the numbers came. Is that we were numbered and volunteers were numbered, and they would work with the same child every time they came to work with them. And so there was a volunteer 32,
number 32,
and there was an orphan 32. And that
so,
was my
so would the volunteer have worked with you for the last 4 days before you went to the family?
Possibly, or there were new volunteers who worked specifically for Surrey Place Centre, and they would come in, and but they were on a rotating shift, right? But they knew that child was kind of designated to them.
Such an inspiring
but the Campbells were expecting a 2-year-old child walking and talking, and they get this little baby, malnourished, very, very sick, glossy eyes, not knowing what just happened to them. Exactly. But that was their heart, and they brought me home, and that's how I got the good Scottish last name, Campbell.
So, at that age of 2 years old, you had already gone through what most adults will never even begin to understand. And so begins your journey of being a person that would ultimately be connecting with people from all walks of life, right? And so tell me what being part of the Campbell family means to you.
Well, they were a beautiful family, loving family, unconditional love for all of their children. So they had 3 of their own, what we call homegrown children, and then they adopted 3. And so you can tell right from that makeup of a family who they were, what kind of people they were. And so, we were a regular family, sibling rivalry, all that kind of stuff, but the underlying is God's love and love for each other and the love for the world. My dad used to work for World Vision, and we always heard stories of these children in the plight. And I always grew up knowing that I was one of those children. So I always knew what kind of life I could have had if I had not been rescued from that. And so it was a life of gratitude. It was a life of understanding what's possible out there, and what, through God's grace is also possible, and the impossible being made possible through Him. And so, I grew up just a secure, loving family, loved them, but, not perfect.
That's right.
My father was a pastor, very busy with 3 charges at one point. Yes, exactly. But he he was a dad, he was a father, taught us baseball, basketball,
That's
you know, all that kind
He
of
was
stuff.
present, yeah.
But it was my mom who was really my friend and would listen and was the one who, you know, counseled and just mentored me. And when I was a teenager, we sat there and listened to my, you know, my woe is
Your
me.
16-year-old
I know
drama.
exactly, you know. But so she was my best friend, and we lost her in 2000. But you know, I had such much good time with her that you know, I know she's in a better place, but I miss her daily. But she was a wonderful woman, a wonderful, you know, example of a, you know, a godly wife. Going to the Maritime when we lived in Ontario, moving out to no man's land, literally in the Maritime. That's what we thought.
Of course.
And being just that faithful, steadfast partner to my dad, we saw what, you know, a godly wife is to be, and example that for my sisters, and they have followed suit.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Which is
so.
wonderful.
Tell me a bit about what hope lives on means to
Absolutely.
you. So I've come to see that as one of your catchphrases. It's something that you live and you embody. You're never one to stay down for long. And it's like,
Thank you.
It doesn't matter what circumstance comes your way, Than, you've always had a way of really keeping perspective. So for the viewers who might be listening saying, okay, so you've had really dire circumstances, you overcame them, and you're now helping others. How do I get from this place of being down
Well,
to living in hope?
I think you say there's some statement in there, and then there's something I will change. It says, I didn't get myself out of it. You know, I was brought out of it. Just like my life in Vietnam, I didn't take myself out of Vietnam. I was brought out of that life, of that circumstances. I was saved. I was rescued from that. And same thing when I am in dire straits or I'm going through struggles or whatever, I know I can't get myself out of that. Like literally says, I'm still the same God. I haven't changed from that circumstances to right now. I'm the same guy, right? And I'm like, you're right. And so I've got to learn that every time, that when I'm going through a tough situation, it's not because he's changed, it's because, you know, life has changed or circumstances have changed, but God hasn't changed.
And sometimes he's trying to change something in us, right? So it's like,
and I've learned not to try and get out of that situation too quick, because there is a learning, there's an understanding that needs to be, it's a gift that he's trying to give to me through hard circumstances that I need to learn. And if I skip over that, then I'm not going to be the person that he needs me to be, not wants me to be, needs me to be. And for my children, for my family. And so when I'm going through tough situations, I'm going through one right now, you know what I mean? I have to stop. And I have to go, be still. Know that he is God. And then I am not. And then say, okay, God, what is it that you need me to learn? What is it? And daily, as I say, he'll give me a grace. You know what I mean? He'll give me a ray of sunshine. And that's why hope. That's why I'm on tour, you know. I call my business Hope for the World Productions. I sign every email. Always hope, right? And then I'm almost speaking to myself when I'm doing that, because I always want to put that word out, that message, say, you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So just stick around till tomorrow.
That's right.
And that's my message to me. Sometimes you don't want to get out of bed, right? You just want to pull the covers over your head,
we've all been
and
there.
you don't want to put your feet on the ground. But that glimpse of hope, that understanding that there is someone higher than any struggle that you may have. Someone says, don't you know, tell God your troubles. Tell troubles how big your God is,
exactly,
right?
Yes.
And I do that. I'm like, okay, car, you know, look out, because God's gonna. You wanna know what happened? I've been having car problem. Someone gave me a car.
Do you see what I mean? Like literally, without the issue arising, you wouldn't have the opportunity to get the gift of something new, right? And so it's like in the middle of your mess, in the middle of whatever it is that's happening that kind of brings you in a place where you're feeling uneasy, you're feeling vulnerable, there's always a gift that's yet to be unleashed, right? Now,
and it's like, you know, you're on these waves going like this, and all of a sudden this life preserver comes.
Just to know.
And you're just going, okay, I'm good, right? This hasn't changed, but I'm good.
That's right.
Right? I'm secure.
Now, in terms of your book, Orphan 32, amazing book.
Thank you. Thank
Such
you so
an
much.
easy read, very impactful. I almost felt like I was listening to you talk as I read
that.
through the book.
That's great.
But you've
That's exactly what I
taken
wanted.
it another step further
Yeah.
and actually created a children's version of the
Yeah, that's
book.
right. Well, what I wanted people to have with Orphan 32 is they see a side of me. I'm out there networking, I'm doing all this stuff, but we all are like an iceberg. You know what I mean? We all have a part that we show above the surface, and then there's so much below us, right? And so I wanted people to kind of get a real understanding of who I was below the surface. There's some of the struggles I've had. Some of, you know, I smile a lot. A lot of people say that. My nickname in elementary school was Smile. It really was.
Really?
Right? But this face right here is still under there, and I deal with this on a daily basis. And so I want to give people an insight, you know what I mean? As you say, pull that curtain back and understand where this came from and what I deal with. And so I wanted it to be plain language so that it was accessible to everyone. But the reason it came about is because I've been sharing my story on stage so long, relating to the children that my dad worked with World Vision and Kids Alive International, saying I was one of them. And my heart still goes out with them. We need to help these children. And so that's why people said, have you ever written your story down? So eventually, when enough people asked me, I did.
It made sense.
So this actually got published in 2013. Sold 1,000 copies in the first 2.5 months in 2014, and to date sold 5,000 copies. So it's doing well. So then I came up with the concept, okay, let's make this even accessible to the younger generation. Let's bring that message of hope to even the youngest of youngest.
Where they can understand it right when they see it.
Exactly.
And kind of really relate.
You know, these pictures are, you know what I mean, compelling. What's going on? He's in a box. Or look at this face,
and there's a story behind who even did the pictures for you.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. She's a wonderful girl. Her name is Michaela Colville. She's a grade 12 student at Bishop Bryan here in Hamilton. She's going to Sheridan. And she has her own life struggles and issues that she has overcome. She's a wonderful, dear girl and talented, as you can see, very gifted in the arts. And so I'm so glad that she partnered with me. And so I really wanted to bring this down to a very simple level. But my daughter's in grade 11. She's 11 years old. She's in grade 6 this year. And I wanted her to be able to read this book, her dad's story or her family's story, to her reading buddy in a lower grade. And so being able to pick up this book and saying, I want to read you a story, read the story, and then say, that's my dad, you know what I mean, kind of thing. So it's a little bit of a, ulterior motive that I wrote this one down.
Well, to every grade 1 and grade 2 teacher that is tuning in right now, Lost and Found is definitely a book you want to make sure that you pick up.
So yes, so it's called Lost and Found, Orphan 32 Goes Home. And I'm excited because actually the Hamilton Women's District School Board just purchased 50 copies for their ESL classes. And so people are using it for many different reasons, not just that, but they're actually going to help people learn English. These newcomers to Hamilton, telling the story of another newcomer to the area. You know what I mean?
Someone who's acclimated and has become part of the fabric.
Yeah, and giving them that hope. Hey, this is how he started. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
That's right.
Right? And giving them that same message. It's not how you started, it's not where you came from, but it's what you do when you get there, right?
And lastly, Ton, I wanted to ask you, for the person that's struggling to find their voice, the person that's feeling lost, what are some words of encouragement and wisdom that you would offer to them? They're just in that place where it's like, hey, I don't really know where to go, and I'm feeling like an outsider, I'm feeling a little bit isolated. What would you say to that person?
Well, writing things down and journaling and just being still, right? And asking, just if you ask God a question, He's a gentleman and He will answer.
That's right.
And so when people are unsure or they're questioning, it's often because they're not their gaze is inwards.
That's right.
They're not gazes outwards.
That's right.
And so that answer will come. So when you're journaling and you're journaling your thoughts and you're just being able to write your emotions, your feelings,
that's right.
You'll see your story. You'll see your purpose come with your passion and being able to tie that in. And we have very similar purpose and passions, right? And then how to get a voice. You know what I mean? We have technology. We have internet.
Options available.
You can reach a broad audience very, very simply these days. And so there are people crying out every night for a word of hope, for a light to shine in. And you never know if your story, you know what I mean, might reach someone. And you're saying, oh, I don't have a story. I was brought up in Canada. My family was solid, blah, blah, blah. What kind of, and there are other people going in the world, there's a family like that?
Yeah.
Possible?
That's
you know what I mean?
right.
And like, they can find hope in a person's story that they would think, oh, my story is mundane. Right? It doesn't always have to be a traumatic story like this or yours.
That's right.
It can be just very plain, and that can be very inspirational to someone because it's extraordinary to them. And so you never know, and so it's being able to just offer yourself your gift, and that might be your story too.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Pleasure.
Now, how do we connect with you? I know you've got Our Ambitious City, your amazing show that you had me on.
Well, on Facebook, obviously, social media. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, absolutely Than Campbell or Than.Campbell, or you just look up. I'm probably the only Than Campbell out there.
And I know for the book, there's a website for Orphan 32.
Orphan32.com is the website you can go to for the Orphan 32. Lost and Found has its own Facebook page, so you can connect with me for that. So it's called Lost and Found, Orphan 32 Goes Home. I also have a Facebook page, which is Orphan 32 author page. Which is also, you can connect with me. So
you really can't miss Than.
No,
honestly. Type in Than Campbell,
right,
you will find it. He's on Instagram,
Thank you.
You're on Facebook, and I love what you're doing with this work. And I know that your life really has become a billboard. And I'm so thankful that you decided to be vulnerable and say, you know what, hey guys, I'm going to bring you along the journey of my actualization. And it's been something that's so beautiful.
You bring up Hamilton, and why am I such a proponent or ambassador of him? I really believe that there is a call on Hamilton. I really believe that the prophecies that have been over Hamilton, there's something happening. There's something that's, rumbling, and God wants attention to come here.
That's right.
And so my role right now as an ambassador through the name Our Ambitious City is really telling other people's stories. Is really getting people's awareness of it's not what they think.
No.
There's more to under the surface than you think what Hamilton is. And I really think it's going to draw people from all nations.
And it's breaking new ground.
It really is.
It's breaking new ground.
And your church and the Church on the Rock here, it's amazing to see, what's happening even through the True City initiative of multi-churches coming together.
That's one big voice.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's one big family.
Exactly, and praying. The amount of prayer that's happening for this city and by this city is going to impact the world.
That's right.
Right? And so that's why I'm such a big proponent. It's not just the economy, it's not just the coolness of restaurants. Yes, that's a factor, but I really believe there's a hand that is on here.
Totally agree.
There's also an oppression, and it still needs help, and it still needs a lot of prayer, and we need as many warriors
to
here.
counter that resistance.
Exactly. Absolutely, and you're one of them, and thank you for being one of them.
So much.
And your father is one of those as well. And thank you for your faithfulness and being a soldier for Christ in this battleground called Hamilton. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, blessings.
So you've been watching It's Your Time with your boy Sammy Kyereme. It's been an amazing episode here with Than Campbell. Once again, if you want to connect with him, he's on Facebook, on Instagram. If you just type in Than Campbell, there are a number of things going on that you can connect with. And as I said, he is someone that is passionate about the city and passionate about people. And so if you are looking for a speaker at your next event, if you're looking for someone who is going to share to your school group, to your church group, to any kind of space, he's more than willing to come and offer his help and assistance. And so just a reminder to whoever's tuning in, you have a story, you have a voice, and your journey matters. And so we'll see you next time on It's Your Time.
Yeah.
Take care.